Coming up, we're going to be talking about Alavés Barca, that Lewandowski hat-trick. We'll also be talking about the retirement of Andrés Iniesta, and we're getting set for Barca Femíni's debut in UEFA Women's Champions League.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Driven Shot podcast. This is brought to you in collaboration between Blogger and Mundo Deportivo. I am Omar Hawwash, and he is Jamie Coles. Jamie, how are we doing today?
Good. It's been a big day. It's been a long day.
Oh yeah, it's been very eventful. I think when you have a footballing legend in every right, such as Andrés Iniesta announcing his retirement, as much as it was expected, it's bound to feel like a very long day. He's 40 years old. It's time, but I think that for a lot of people, I don't know if people were expecting it to happen now, or if people were thinking, he's going to be still going for a while, because he wasn't playing at a very high level.
Yeah. And he was kind of like, he was looking for a club, or it was kind of like announced he was without a club. Right. And it was kind of like, well, maybe he'll go somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, he's taken the decision. He decided it is time, and call it a day. He's obviously moving on to new footballing. I don't know how much we need to go into the news, because like everyone's probably read it and heard it already. But we can break it down a little bit. Obviously he's going into other areas of football. Like he wants to work more with like the academies and the youth, leave a legacy. He's gonna start. He's not even done the first day, he said today. He
hasn't had his first class yet.
The coaching course, and who knows where that'll take him. And there was a really, just to kind of continue the thought, and we'll break it down. There was a really interesting comment made by Pep Guardiola. They played a series of videos, and Pep said, I think it was Pep. It was either Pep or Luis Enrique. I believe it's Pep. He said, like, this guy has played for so many years at so many different levels, representing so many different teams, countries. Countries, just the one country, but it's everybody, he's under so many different coaches, taking so many titles. He's had like a masterclass in coaching already. Like, he's like, that's not something you learn on a coaching course. I'm very much paraphrasing. But for me, that it was kind of like he's ready. This is going to be like the guy for any job.
You'd have to think so, wouldn't you? I mean, one thing is, like you said, he's been through a lot of coaches, been through a lot of different styles. I mean, Barca's style is Barca's style, but it's also still been a little bit different. I mean, Enrique's Barca isn't the same as Pep's Barca isn't the same as so on and so forth. So he's been through different iterations of that, but also 40 years of football. Well, not of football, but he's been on the scene. He's been, he's 40 years old. So when did he
start at Barca? Let me look that up. Continue the thought.
Yeah, because 40 years is a long time for football. Like, most players that you see retire 35, 36, 37, Chesney retired even before that, right? And then came out of retirement to play for Barca. And it's just such a long time. It's such a long time. And to then go from Europe to say, you know what, I'm going to play at Vissel Kobe, and then become such a fan favorite there for a while, spend a couple of years there, and then say, you know what, I'm not done yet, and then go play for Emirates Club. It says so much about him as a player. And you could talk about, okay, well, he's only tried it at one club, like one European club, but trying it in other continents, in other areas of the world, other styles of play, other things are at stake for those games. I think it shapes your perspective differently to football. And I think despite the fact that he's only been at one European club his whole career, he's seen so much with that club. He's seen so many different players. He's seen so many different coaches, not just the head coach, the coaches at the club, so many different things. He's seen so much. So yes, I do think that he is one of those. If there ever was a player who is primed to be a coach, it would have to be Andrés Iniesta. if we're talking in recent times, it would have to be him. He's been through so
No
much
doubt.
with everyone, and his head is in football. As we saw in the video that he released yesterday. Well, as you're hearing this, it's about 2 days ago. The man lives and breathes football, and it's shined through everything he's ever done. You can see it in everything he's ever done. So I do hope that he takes the right steps in terms of taking it iteratively instead of going all in, which I don't think he will do either. I don't think he's gonna go just I'll go just all in, just try and land the first job. I don't see him as that person at all.
He's spoke very fondly of the work he's doing with youth football and talking about a legacy in that sense. So yeah, like you say, like Giuliano Belletti's doing in Barca now, like working his way up, and maybe we'll see Iniesta kind of doing the same. Just to go back to the kind of the previous thought, he was 22 years he was at Barca.
That
6 of those
is a lot.
Right. And six as a youth player, I believe. He came up to Barca in 1996 to the youth side. He went to I'm looking now on transfer, but he went to 99. He went to under 16s, 2000 under 19s, which is what we call the juvenil, no? 2001 he was in Barca B, the reserves, and then 2002 to 2018 he was in the first team, which is incredible in itself. Like you think about 16 years in a first team at that level, and like you said,
and being so influential, he's been such an influential player. He's not just been. I mean, we're not talking about a player who was around for 16 years. He was a core player for a decent amount of those 16 years.
Yeah.
And even when he wasn't a core player, he was still contributing in meaningful ways on the pitch. And to think that also, I think it says a lot that he comes into Barça B, which is now Barça Athletic, and then spends 1 year. And they're like, yep, now you're officially a first teamer. That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
That is ridiculous. But that also speaks volumes of the talent that this man had. And not even to mention everything he could do on a pitch. Still to this day, I do catch myself kind of thinking wishfully like, oh, it would be nice if he came to Barca just for one last dance,
Yeah.
Obviously, it won't happen now, but it would have been nice.
It would. I mean, we saw the Vissel Kobe Barca kind of like the matches and stuff, and that was cool to see him kind of back involved in that way. Yeah, we'd like to see him come back to the Camp Nou, but he ended his career at age 34, which for some, like we might say, is still young.
And I will say this, right? I don't know if people have fully given him his flowers for this. But what he said today also really stuck with me is where he said, well, when I felt like I wasn't as useful to Barca anymore, I thought, you know what? I'm going to leave. Yep. I'm paraphrasing also, but that's essentially the point, right? Is once you realize I'm past it at this point, which I still think to this day, if you asked Coolers, I think 9 out of 10 would say, no, he's not. He still got it. I genuinely, when he left Barca, I still felt like he still had more to give. He was not part of the problem that Barca was facing at the time, I don't think. Yes, he was growing old, but I always felt like you could phase him out a bit slower. 2018, right. He's not even 35 yet, and he always just was able to make an impact even in his later years. So for me, I think for a club legend, for a man who's achieved so much with Barcelona, so much with Spain, been an integral part of what that Spain national team achieved, throughout the 2010s, and to then say, well, you know what, I'm going to pull the plug. I'm going to say, you know what, maybe it's over for me now. And then I'm going to respectfully say thank you and goodbye and leave the club. Very, very few people would do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe,
very few.
In recent history, we've seen proof maybe of that. We're not getting too much into it, but you know.
Yeah, no, 100%.
So I mean, that was today. That was probably the biggest news of the week in terms of Barca. I mean, you know, what a way to kind of head into the international break, really.
It does kind of bring a sense of closure, though, doesn't it? Because we've spoken about this Iniesta thing off camera as well, and you know, it's been a thing where it's like, okay, October 8th is gonna come around. Like, what's gonna happen? Like, he's probably gonna retire. He's 40 years old, and there have been hints at it, but it is kind of a nice way to go into the international break. I feel like with, you know, okay, so Barca have had their games, still have Femení. We're gonna get into that. Don't you worry. But I think it is kind of a nice way to get into the international break and kind of leave club football behind for a week and a half.
Yeah, we can kind of draw a bit of a line, and and I mean the kind of the event itself was incredible. Like, it was clearly really well worked. It was in the IMAX here, and honestly, I thought they were going to announce a documentary because of working with Never Say Never as well. I think a lot of other people did. Because also, you know, doing such an event in an IMAX theater, which is actually now kitted out for the America's Cup, and everything going on there. It's right behind the Ineos Britannia kind of team base, right there in the port in Barcelona, and so it was like, you know, really well planned that he'd say kind of bits of the speech, then they play some videos, and he'd play a bit more of a speech, and it kind of like talked through his career, and had various people from his career, like his first coaches, his family. Pep and Luis Enrique, of course. And, you know, I think that it was really nice. And then at the end, he kind of like, well, he's like, I'm going off script now because I need to speak to other people that, you know, I need to take the moment to talk about. It was cool,
that was very beautiful too.
It was pure Iniesta. So, So it was really well done. And like you say, kind of like the timing was good. The timing in terms of like Barca was good. You know, Barca in a good moment. Doing it in Barcelona City, which is also in a good moment with the America's Cup, with kind of everything going on in the city, and just heading into the international break. Like, chapeau to everyone that was involved in organizing it, because you couldn't have done it better, I don't think, or at least, you know, within the constraints of how busy these people are.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, and it is wonderful. I think it is very fitting to send off a player in the way they did with Iniesta. You know,
and some good representation there as well. Like, you know, Gerard Piqué was there, Xavi was there, Sergio Roberto there, and then also some of the
Gavi,
current guys, the youngsters, they were all there too.
Dani Olmo as well, which I thought was a very nice touch. You know, obviously born in Terrassa, he's been around. You know, I thought it was a very nice touch.
Yeah.
And you could also tell, I think it's also a testament to how involved they are in the culture now. I mean, a lot of these Barcelona new guys. I mean, obviously Iniesta is Iniesta, but
right.
You know.
Also, how important he is to the kind of Barca history and Spanish history as well. You know, he said he called it his two skins. He said, and playing for La Roja and of course Barca, and actually later on he was asked, like, if he had to choose a goal, would it be the Barca one or the World Cup one? And he was like, I can't choose either. Like, if I have these two sides to me, and it's just amazing that I had the opportunity to score both of those goals. and like, you know, he just has this great way of seeing things, I think.
He really does, you know. And I think it's also I know we're really, really like showing him a lot of love, and I think he truly does appreciate it. It's, for me, it really makes me happy that if anyone had to experience those things, getting that goal in the World Cup, getting that goal for Barca, especially because he wasn't the most goal-scoring midfielder ever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if Barca needed a goal, he wasn't the first name you'd think of, like, oh, he's going to score. Maybe he's like fourth or fifth, given what Barca had at the time.
For sure.
But he got to score goals that live long in the memories of fans of football, not just Spain or Barca.
Right.
And I think it's beautiful that also you could tell how touched he was by the people around him. You know, his partner, his wife, his mother. For a person like Iniesta, it made me so happy that he's the one that got to go through those things and experience those things. And in the end, I'm just very excited to see what the future has in store for him, because it's really, I know we say that expression a lot, but truly, the sky is the limit for this man. And I think compared to like a Xavi, for example, where Xavi, when he, was like, all right, you know what, I'm not going to be playing football. And when he retired, he was already at the club, at a set in Qatar. And then it was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll be coaching you guys now. And then it kind of happened. And then, of course, Barca came knocking on the door, and the situation they were in. And then Iniesta doesn't have that same pressure. And the only club really that I think would entice him to do something like that would be Barca. But a part of me could imagine him setting up some academy work, if he hasn't already, in Japan, not just in Barcelona, because it does seem like that chapter in Japan meant a lot to him.
Yeah,
I think that did. I think we've also seen that with players like Sergio Samper, I think, whose career never really took off.
Who was also there today, by the way.
Yeah.
Bojan as well.
Which I think is great. Bojan as well. I mean, it really is nice. It's one of those events that really, really brought, I think, a lot of Barcelona people together. I mean, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. So I'm happy for Iniesta, and I think he's really got a bright future ahead of him. Whether that's in coaching, or managing coaching, whether that's as a head coach, or whether that's as a coach for midfielders for clubs around the world, or whatever. However, he goes out to carry that out. But it's he deserves, man. He really deserved a ceremony like this. And I think also because some Barcelona fans, I think, have been left with a bit of a bittersweet taste, or bitter taste maybe, just with how some of the departures have been lately. Messi's ceremony came later than people would have hoped for. Suarez was extremely sad. So it is kind of nice to have
sort of celebrate.
More of a celebration.
Yeah,
I think is nice. So
yeah, no, I agree. So to kind of to kind of bring that chapter of this episode to a close, there was one nice thing I thought I just wanted to kind of go back on, and he said I'm crying, but these aren't tears of sadness; they're tears of joy from a child that all he ever wanted to do was play football, and now I've done it. And I just thought, like, that was beautiful, man. Like, so cool.
Really, no, that so really cool. Is really hitting the nail on the head with that one as well, I think.
So maybe we return to kind of the Barca present day a little bit.
Yes,
obviously we're on international break now. Again, this international break I feel is a bit more welcome than like when we first started doing this podcast. We were in the middle of an international break as well. It wasn't that long ago. We played a lot of European and domestic football since then. But I remember just being like, we've had like 3 or 4 great matches, and now we have to stop. Whereas this time it's like, okay.
You know what? Breathe.
Because it's been a lot, and there's a lot ahead as well.
Yeah. No, there is. I mean, out of the next 5 matches after the national break, you have Sevilla is 1, and you also have El Clásico and Barça v Bayern.
Yeah.
And
then the Barcelona derby as well on November 3rd in Montjuic, Barça Espanyol. That's, I mean, like, footballing aside, that's going to be tense.
Oh yeah,
it's going to be.
It always is. It always is. This one even more so. I think one thing that I kind of like, the football fan in me would have liked to see. Now, Martin Braithwaite, of course, moved to Grêmio in Brazil. He's been doing quite well. He's gotten off to a good start. Happy for him. I think he's always been a hard-working player, and I think it is nice to kind of see him getting that success. But he, of course, moved from Barca to Espanyol, and I really would have liked, under this Hansi Flick side, to see Barça v Espanyol with one of ex-Barca man on Espanyol's team, or the other way around. Because I think it would have added that much more of an edge now. Because Barcelona now are in a very different moment than they were a year ago.
Yeah.
And I really would have liked to see that. But, I mean, it's the Barcelona derby. And, obviously now the Camp Nou renovations looming around. Realistically, probably won't be before around the new year at least.
That's what they're talking about.
Yeah. Which is fair, it's a big stadium. It takes time. Things get in the way, so it is what it is. But It's going to be very, very interesting, I think, for sure. And I'm excited to see how this is the test for Hansi Flick, right? This has to be.
This
Not
next
the game itself, but this stretch.
this stretch, yeah, like you say, like Sevilla, okay, but then like Bayern at home, Bayern in Montjuic, Madrid in Bernabeu, Espanyol in Montjuic. Like it's a run. It's a big run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think also here's a factor that I don't think we've really considered much. So obviously, when you're a Granada and you play at Real Madrid Stadium at the Bernabeu, in your head you're going to the fortress, right?
Right.
Barcelona had that for a while for a long time with the Camp Nou, then dipped in form. Now they're on the way back up, but they don't have the Camp Nou. They have the Montjuic. So for the mentality, if Barcelona were able to say, look, we don't have the Camp Nou right now, but we have the Montjuic, and this is a fortress. You're not just going to come in and we're not going to roll over. We're going to steamroll you, and then you're going to go back home. If they can make the Montjuic a fortress, just imagine what's going to happen when teams come to the new Camp Nou.
Yeah, man, and it's going to be
scary. That's the intimidation that Barca should aim for, and I think it is. I really think it is.
I think Xavi's Barca maybe missed that a bit in Montjuic, and maybe struggle with that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it also because now they've been there for a while, and now it's
right.
I mean, I imagine it's starting to. Players under Hansi Flick now are starting to kind of get used to the style of play. You can tell they feel a bit more comfortable. Some of the players are having a bit more fun on the pitch. So if you pair that with, we've been here for a year or 6 months, depending on how long the player's been.
It's starting to feel more like home. We're heading into kind of a difficult stretch in Montjuic as the nights get darker and colder and there's less tourists coming into the city. And you do notice that out there, very much so. You used to notice it in the Camp Nou, but you notice it more in Montjuic, I think.
Yeah, I imagine the Montjuic is different for the players too. Like especially players who, like, let's say an Ansu Fati or a Frenkie de Jong who've been out for a long time now. That's gonna feel like a neutral ground to them to some extent, right? So I think it is
the youngsters that have never, Lamine Yamal, very few minutes in the Camp Nou, if any.
Yeah.
Fermin Lopez, definitely not.
Very few. No, Fermin.
How could I see neither? Like Gerard Martin, all these youngsters that are coming through now, like for them, Montjuic is home.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I haven't really stopped to think about that one.
Good. Yeah. You're welcome for that.
Last weekend.
No, I think it is an interesting one.
Last weekend, then Robert Lewandowski got his 52nd league, 50th, 51st, 52nd league goals since signing for Barca.
He is incredible. I mean, we spoke about it before. I'm slowly, I'm running out of words to describe him as a striker, because when he first joined Barca, people were like, Barca fans were like, oh yes, this is what we're looking for. Other fans were like, he's finished. You're getting a finished player.
I mean, he's 36 years old and he's Petiti in La Liga.
He is
by a way as well. Like, let me pull up my stats in front of me. But
no, he's leading like by a decent amount, I think. And it's also just his confidence.
So he scored 10 goals in La Liga. Sorry to cut you off. Ayoze Perez of Villarreal has scored 6. He's the next, and Mbappe then with 5. So
shout out to Ayoze Perez, man. I just want to say that I've always really enjoyed watching him play. He had a difficult stint at Real Betis and then came now to Villarreal. It's interesting too because Villarreal are not doing, like, they're not flying. So it is very interesting to me that Villarreal's one of their wingers is second in the top scorer ahead of certain Mr. Kylian Mbappe. I think that's very interesting. I don't think many would have expected that. But I mean,
and tied on points with Atletico,
But for Lewandowski, man, it really it amazes me because it's not what anyone would have expected going into the season. Even with Hansi Flick at the helm, I don't think many people expected. Oh yeah, no, Lewandowski now he is gonna really go
100%.
all in. But also he just looks so confident now. Like it's not like he's just getting the goals. He's looking confident on the ball, off the ball. His demeanor is different.
And he's looking good with the
like
youngsters. Like the way he's leading the youngsters and kind of like giving them advice and helping them out. And like big fan of everything he's doing.
Yeah, and you can tell. It really, really does show the impact that he's having. You can tell if you just keep an eye on him during free kicks, during corners, when Barca, have the ball or don't have the ball. His body language is very, very positive. He's very much a leader on and off the pitch. And obviously he loves Barcelona. He said that so many times, But I think also, like, for a player who spent so long in the Bundesliga, right? I don't know if I would have expected Barca to be the club that he loves as much as he does. Because it's so distant from the style. It's so distant from everything that you see in the Bundesliga, right? Like, if I hear if you hear like a Victor Boniface saying, "Oh, Liverpool are my favorite club," it would make sort of sense, But to hear it about a club in La Liga, I think is it is Barcelona, but it's not what I expected.
But also, it's a very different Barcelona to the one he kind of signed for as well. Like,
that is true. That is very true.
You look at the squad that they had a couple of years back, and look at the squad that they've got now. It's very, very different, far younger. All these homegrown players that are coming through, and he's just there in the mix, like he's loving it. But like you see the same with Hansi Flick in that regards. Like, he's just there, like, you see him. I mean, he was next to Gavi today at the Iniesta thing. You see how he's walked out on pitch. There's been pictures of like him and Gavi, like almost cuddling. Like, there's almost this like father figure kind of thing going on, and it's, I don't know, it just works. It's paying off.
I've noticed it a lot on some of the videos that we've seen of the training ground, a lot of the pitch side stuff where he's like talking to some of the younger kids. Like, you can tell there's an atmosphere around the team that's just so. It feels like a family, For the first time in a while, I think, to the outside as well, it feels like a family. Barca feels like a family, and I think that's such an important, crucial aspect going into the stretch of the season that they're going into now. It's still early in the season and all that, but we are slowly nearing the new year, and usually it's a good indicator of how clubs are going to end up being towards the end of the season. So,
sure.
It's been Hansi Flick, I think, has been incredibly good, and I think obviously you can say, well, he's had his impact on Lewandowski. Of course he has, but I think Lewandowski now, like you said, different players around him. But it also feels like he just is the perfect fit for the style and for the players and for the profiles that Flick has in midfield and defense, the way they play.
Yep.
He just feels like the perfect fit, exactly what you'd want from a striker in this formation, in that style of football. And it's not, I don't think it's what many people would have expected.
No. And he's got all the support there as well. I want to kind of we need to move on to, time is quickly running out. We need to move on to the women. But I just wanted to point out a stat that the front three, Lamine Yamal, Rafinha, and Robert Lewandowski, have now all got 10 or more combined goals and assists. So, like, Lamine Yamal's got, I believe, 5 and 5 in La Liga and Champions League. So he's got
sounds about right.
Rafinha's got 6 and 5. I think he's got 10. I think he's got 5 assists in La Liga and 5 goals, and then 1 goal, that goal in the Champions League. I could be wrong. And then Robert Lewandowski's got like 12 goals across all competitions and 2 assists. Like, those numbers are incredible for this point of the season, I think.
Like, it is, yeah. I mean, and also Rafinha, man. I don't want to.
Let's not get into it today. We'll do a whole episode on Rafinha before the end of the international break.
Oh yeah, it definitely feels that way as well.
He's just everywhere and wearing the captain's armband and winning hearts.
I promise you, he's not taking that captain's armband off anytime soon. And it that kind of love for the club, I think, it really makes a difference. It really, really makes a difference. It's so inspiring to the players around him, and it does bring this sort of cult hero status to him in a way that I think wouldn't be as quickly achievable otherwise.
Yeah, for sure. To wrap up then, as of recording, Tuesday evening, the women's team are now in Manchester. and they're set to make their Champions League debut for the 2024-25 season, defending the crown and starting off against Man City.
Yeah, and that's going to be an interesting one. Kira Walsh, Roebuck, you have a lot of interesting aspects, I think, of that matchup. And going into those aspects and giving you a rundown of everything you have to know ahead of Barca v Man City or Man City v Barca is blog anagram editor Hans Mickey. Take it away.
Barcelona Femení returned to Champions League action on Wednesday. It's going to be the first time that they have had a European competition really since the final against Lyon last season. It's because they played most of the pre-season in the United States, and obviously as champions of the Champions League and the Liga FA, they didn't have to go through qualifying. The opponent is going to be Manchester City at home at the Joy Stadium in Manchester. Actually, the last time Manchester City was in the Champions League proper, they played the same fixture against Barcelona at the Joy Stadium, which at the time was the Academy Stadium. That match, Manchester City won, but they still lost the quarterfinal overall. Barcelona went on to win the title for the first time. It could be a pretty tough match. Manchester City, of course, also hasn't had European football anytime recently, and they qualified automatically as second in the WSL, the Women's Super League in England, so they may also be a bit rusty coming up against non-English opponents. However, they have amazing players. Lauren Hemp is the left-sided answer to Carolina Graham-Hansen. They have Bunny Shaw, the amazing striker, and obviously they have Laia Alexandri from La Masia, who we can probably expect to start on Wednesday. Another familiar face will be Leila Wahabi, who played for Barcelona in that match against Manchester City 3.5 years ago. And of course, Manchester City will be facing Kira Walsh and Ellie Roebuck, who played for them in that match. Kira Walsh wore the captain's armband and was named player of the match for Manchester City last time. Hopefully, and especially with her amazing performance in the Liga FA yesterday, she will be the one causing headaches for Manchester City. And Barcelona will have a fantastic win, hopefully.
And those were the words of blog monogram editor Hans Mickey, giving you the rundown on the Barca Femení clash with Manchester City as they kick off their Champions League campaign for the 24-25 season.
We'll review all of that on the next episode, as well as it's a Barcelona derby this weekend, actually, in the women's Liga F. Barca Femení play Espanyol. So we'll be talking about that as well. Next episode, join us, and we'll be giving all the updates about Barca as they happen as well. Thanks for watching. Yeah. Thanks for listening. Whether you're watching on YouTube, do be sure to do the whole like, subscribe, follow, and
comment. Let us know your thoughts.
Absolutely. I've been Jamie Coles. He's been Omar Hawwash, and this has been the Driven Shot podcast.
Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.